To a 2-0 start, so that's exciting. Sort of go into the last game of what we've sort of called phase 2 for us. So phase 1 was, the first phase was our summer camp, and phase 2 is our out-of-conference game. So looking forward to this. We've had great crowds thus far. Should be a great environment. 4 o'clock national game on Fox, and they do a great job with things. And then also just a big day, for Michigan State in general. Arizona State comes in 2-0 as well. Herm Edwards, outstanding football coach. He's a football guy. I think that he's been around football all his life, and every time I've had an opportunity to be around him, I really enjoyed just sitting and talking with him and everything. But to see the game change himself as he's gone through time. And when you look at Arizona State, first thing you got to look at, I think, is their tailback. Benjamin, Jaden Daniels, a true freshman quarterback, who very good player. Benjamin, first team All-Conference, third team All-American, preseason All-American pick, 1,600 yards rushing. Sort of makes it work. They got an outstanding group of receivers. Been impressed with those guys. Defensively, a lot of pressure, a lot of different looks. And really, when you look at them, they played very well defensively these last 2 games. And I would say that, there is no one guy that sort of dominates that side of the ball, but they got a collective group. I'm impressed with their secondary as well. They play hard and they play with emotion. Outstanding punter, and should be a great challenge for us in a great football game, so we're looking forward to that. So with that, I'll take some questions and we'll go from there.
Mark, going against this Arizona State defense, they're in a similar 3-3-5 to what Tulsa did. How much does that game help you in terms of preparing to face that game again, and what's the learning curve for that?
Well, I think that first of all, we're playing 3 teams with distinct different defenses at every game, so there always is a little bit of learning curve. Even though they're a 3-3-5 team, they're different than Tulsa in terms of what they do in the back end coverage-wise, and also what they're doing up front. They're a penetrating type of team. They put a lot of people at the point of attack, a lot of different pressures and movement up front. So a little bit like Western in that fact, a little bit like Tulsa in the fact that they're built from a 3-3-5 standpoint. But there's similarities, but there's definitely differences in the 3 teams. When your quarterback's playing well, good things happen, and he's played well both games. So you need to continue to play well. And then as far as everybody else, we ran the ball much more effectively, got what we wanted out of that, and threw the ball as well. Got a lot of production. The penalties, the 0 sacks, no penalties, 0 sacks, those are great things as well. You can point to those things. If those things happen, you're going to be productive because you don't put yourself behind the 8 ball. Ball security, first game, perfect. Second game had 2 problems, but we sort of overcame those on defense. I just thought we played well. Now it becomes consistency and performance, much like I said, I guess, on Sunday night. You have to continue to do that and get better and better and better. Our offensive line played well as well, but there will be challenged this week with a lot of different looks and some pretty good players up front as well. So it'll be interesting to watch and see how the game unfolds.
Mark, confidence was at an all-time high with the players when they came in. Do you address that going into this game with a team like Arizona State and staff like Herm Edwards or not?
Yeah, we've got a confidence level. I think that we've been a confident football team, especially on the defensive side of the ball. It goes a little bit back and forth, obviously. Had a lot of injuries last year, but, big step this past week. So I do think we're confident, and I think we're excited to play. And that's half the battle all the time, the excitement that you bring with you, with your football team. That's a big component, I think, in every football game. And, you can't fake that kind of stuff. I don't think you get all rah-rah during the week. That's just the way we've always approached it. But I feel a sense of optimism, and that's exciting.
Mark, I was curious. I think you probably saw a lot of their same guys. They were a pretty young defense last year, so you probably saw a good amount of them. How have some of those individual players grown, and maybe how has defensively the scheme evolved, I guess, from last year to this year, as far as you can tell?
A little bit more pressure, I think, this year as it's evolved, I think. It's their second year in, so, as a staff, so I think that they, obviously have evolved a little bit. as I said, you do see a lot of the same players. They don't have that big nose tackle, so that's a plus. Okay, but they've got, for the most part, a lot of guys back. I think, so I count them up here. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 starters back or so. So, and the other guys who have played a lot of football for them. So it'll be a challenge for us. You know, there's going to be some bad plays. There's going to be some plays where we have the numbers as well. So, you know, you've got to be able to break tackles and make plays. You've got to execute. You know, there's no magic to this. I continue to say that. It's blocking, tackling, you know, catching the ball, throwing the ball. Special teams enter into these things. So there's a lot of different components that make up a football game, and I think that's what's unique about this sport. I mean, it's almost like you're playing 2, 3 different sports out there at times because of so many different aspects of the game that's taking place.
Mark, you mentioned how you always break up the season in segments. This is being for phase. This is phase 2. It's been since 15, I think, that you guys went undefeated in non-conference play. I know the games don't always mash up like that, but do you notice a different feeling from your team and when you escape that, unblemished, to get to Big Ten play?
No, I think we're always looking forward. I think we've done a good job of that at all times. You know, whether we played a big game, you know, what do we do next? I think sometimes that's where we're always going to be measured. You know, whether you have a problem or whether something good happens. You know, what are you going to do next? And because people are looking for that response, and we've always tried to make sure that we take a positive attitude in that respect, regardless of what's happening. So, but we've divided it up like this so we didn't get ahead of ourselves. I mean, that's as big as anything. Don't get ahead of yourself. Focus on the moment and chase that moment.
Mark, there was less shuffling along the offensive line against Western Michigan. Is that the plan moving forward for this week, or is that going to depend on the game, how it plays out?
That depends on the game and our production and our execution, and you know, I guess you know, somewhat injuries in terms of does a guy get nicked up or is he tired or those type of things as it moves forward.
Mark, you mentioned a few times now there's no magic button. You guys got to execute, but you know, from week 1 to week 2, can you kind of speak to the job that Brad did, make sure guys got in the right spots and dialed up some stuff that just seemed easier for you guys to execute a little bit?
Yeah, I think that Coach Salem, I thought after the first game I mentioned that I thought the play calling came, you know, was rapid and there was no lag time in there and plays were getting called in, and we should need to execute them a little bit better. A lot of the same plays, a lot of the same things. It's just, you know, more big plays and more execution, those type of things. So I think he's done a great job. I think our other coaches on offense as well. We have good teachers. I think they have good rapport and relationships with their players, and we're going to play the best guys. We're going to just keep pushing and try and push our players forward. He's done a great job.
2 things, one at a time. All
That's
the
better.
good running backs you've had here, you've always said you're going to ride the hot horse. Clearly Elijah is the hot horse right now, isn't he?
He looked like it. Yeah.
I mean, is it his job to lose?
Well, he'll start this football game, and he'll have the opportunity to get the majority of carries early, and we'll see how it all shakes out. But I was impressed with him. I thought he had a burst. I thought he ran through tackles, and he had good vision in the hole and good cutting ability. So I mean, he did the job. I thought he was impressive. But I've always said that. I've always come into here and said, hey, you know, there's 3 or 4 guys, and you know, I was always talking a little bit about Elijah. Hey, once he matures a little bit as a player, not as a person, but as a player, you know, that he was going to have an opportunity to be special.
Mark, you were breathing a little fire and smoke here last week. I'm sure you weren't talking to us. Are you pleased with the way your team responded to that, and do you think it had anything to do with the fire they played with?
Well, if you thought it was fire last week, you should have been at the team meeting, I guess. So, you know, but sometimes you just have to deal with the brutal reality of things, and you know, you have to call them as you see them, and that's the way I called it. You know, I felt like, you know, I do feel like this game belongs to the players. Every game belongs to the players. Coaches set it up and do their very best, but at the end of the day, players make plays. I mean, that's the way it is all over America. You know, and there's got to be good execution. There's got to be a good plan. Obviously, it has to be a good plan in place. But then at the end of that, we've won enough around here that I can recognize that hey, the plan's in place, Now you have to execute, or you have to catch the football, you have to make a tackle, those type of things. And usually when you shake it all out at the end of the game, you know, you point to something. Very few times is it something that's not, you know, either a mental error or a physical error. There are some different things and adjustments and things like that need to take place, but you hope that you hope as a coach that you're not overcomplicating things, that you do put the game into players' hands. Because I think at the end of the day, players win games for you. I think that over the course of time here, 12 years, going into 13 now, you can look at it and say players have won games here. It's the execution that takes place, and that's what coaches, I think, relish in, is the execution of the plan. I mean, when they see it executed, that's where they get their, that's where, I taught a system and you see it happen and you put it on a clinic film. Those are the things that you strive to point towards as a coach. If the coaches aren't responsible, they are ultimately responsible as well. But we put the game in the players' hands. I think everybody does that.
Mark, like Fred, I've got kind of a two-part question for you. First of all, Herm talked about his babysitter took him to see Jimi Hendrix at Monterey Pop, and I wanted to know, what's your best concert experience?
Oh, my best concert experience. Well, I really didn't anticipate that answering that question. I've had some good ones. Taking my girls to see Shania Twain, because when they were this big, got them off of horses and surprised them and took them to see Shania Twain in Cincinnati was special because of that. But backstage with Kenny Chesney was special. I missed the Eric Church concert. That's one I need to make because they had another event that night. And then my first concert was the Eagles. So the first concert that I ever went to was the Eagles. So
Cleveland or?
I haven't seen Springsteen yet, so I'm looking for that one someday. Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus. So the second.
That's just off the top of my head.
That's pretty good. The second part, though, is I kind of wanted to think back a little bit to maybe like '94.
Oh,
when you decided to come here with Coach Saban, what made this place a spot for you, and then what made it a spot to come back to?
I first came here in 1994 when we played Michigan State when I was at KU. And I came walking in that stadium and I saw fans and I saw the greenery, the trees and red cedar and Big Ten football atmosphere. And I remember saying to my wife Becky, this is Big Ten football. This is unbelievable. And so you could recognize that this was a special place at that time. And then when I had the opportunity to come in '95 with Coach Saban, obviously jumped at that opportunity. And so stayed here for 6 years. Stayed with Bobby, Coach Williams, because of my feeling towards Michigan State, because of our raising our girls here in this community, because I think it's a great community. And then obviously went to Ohio State as a defensive coordinator, which reuniting with Coach Tressel was very, very special. And I've been a GA at Ohio State. I'm from that state, so that was special. And then the Cincinnati experience as a head coach. And then when I had the opportunity to come back here, I didn't flinch. I made that decision, and really, there's never been any point where I've even considered another position. So it's been one of those places that's been unique to myself and my family. It gave my girls an opportunity to grow up and finish their high school and their college careers here, which I think is so important sometimes in a coach's life in terms of being able to keep your family in the same environment. So it's just been one of those places. I mean, I knew that we could have success here because I've seen success in the past, whether from afar or whether, the '99 season or even going back to the '97 season, we had an opportunity. We had good players here. We had an opportunity to get good players here, special players, and I think still to this day, Michigan State is a national brand. that you can walk in and you can entertain people from anywhere in the country about Michigan State Spartans. They know who they are, and recruiting has changed a little bit, but you still have that national brand.
Mark, final two-parter for you here. When you were watching the film, did you wear sunglasses or those jerseys a little bit different to see your guys run around in?
It was very, when I walked in the locker room, I said, oh my God, goodness. It's like, phew. But I knew that if we wore them at night, that they would take on a whole different look, and when they were all together as a group, it looked good, and then when they were going down the field on big games or making tackles collectively, it looked good. So, Nike did a great job, our players liked them. And that's what I have to look at, and in pregame I said, hey, you guys want to wear these uniforms? To our captains, oh yeah, coach, let's go. So I was like, okay, let's go. And, I liked them at the end of the game, and the bottom line is, how do you play? So.
Second part, I know you're not a guy that looks at yourself throughout the season, but with a win on Saturday, you would become, breaking Duffy's record. Have you had time to reflect on that this week, especially when you tied it last week?
Yeah, I have. What I reflected on was Duffy Daugherty, really. And, when I look, and I'm glad you asked that question, because when I look back and I look at, it's a different time. Football back then is different than it is now. It's a different game. Media is completely different. You have all these different, you probably had two people talking to him on a Tuesday that time, just the local papers. But when you look at what he had accomplished, 4 national championships, Coach of the Year, 2-time National Coach of the Year, coached 29 first-team All-Americans. I really believe he was a pioneer in the integration of college football. If you look back and you really study the integration of college football, Michigan State had 20, I believe, got it written down right here, 20 African Americans playing in the 66 team, 11 starters. And in that 10-10 tie, and not to be disrespectful to anybody, but Michigan State had 20, Notre Dame had 1. And they talk about USC and their game against Alabama. They had 7 African Americans on that team. So Duffy was ahead of his time. He recruited all across America, brought players in from the South, guys like, when I came here and I walked into what was the Duffy Daugherty Center at that time, and sort of a little hall of history there. And I was amazed at Sept 67, draft choices that they had, I think 4 out of the first 8. I mean, that's unparalleled. I don't think there's ever been a team, or will ever be another team that has 4 of the top 8 players picked. Bubba Smith, number 1. Clinton Jones went number maybe 2. I think that George Webster went 4, I think. And then there was Gene Washington at number 8. Go back and you think about some of the players, Charlie Thornhill, you think about Baba Pisa, you think about Sherm Lewis, you think about Jimmy Ray being the first quarterback to integrate college football and play for national championship. You look at Brad Van Pelt playing here, but he had so many players, so many great players playing here, that really he was ahead of his time. And the guys on Time Magazine, I'm not sure if I'm as funny as he is, let's say that. But I think that he really was a bigger than life type person. So when I reflect on this, on this next win at some point, plan on it this weekend, but at some point, it's sort of a milestone, but it really allows me to reflect back on history of college football, and really what Duffy Daugherty did for the game of college football, and what he did for the country in that respect in a lot of ways. And that's what I remember, and the players that I've met from his teams, love the guy. And so when I look at things like that, it's a humbling experience, but we're here now. I honestly read Isaiah 41:20 and I just sort of feel blessed. So that's where I am.
Was there a time early in your tenure here where you knew it was going to work? Like, can you think to a time in those 07, 08, 09 years where you really had a feeling this was going to take off?
Yeah, I sort of felt, I'd never got into a football game and thought, hey, we can't win this one. 2007, one of the things I was most proud of was I believe that we didn't lose one player in attrition in that change, I think. To go back and look, but I remember telling Jerry DiNardo that fact, that that's our goal, not to lose one player. We had good players there. You know, Brian Hoyer's still playing. I mean, how long did Javon Ringer play? You know, we had some great players on that football team, and there were some games that we lost, and we lost close. And we were really in most of the games. Then 2008 came, and we won 9 games. You know, I think you're always going to take a step back when you're building a program a little bit. And 2009 maybe was that year a little bit, but close games. 2010 and 11 we busted out. 2012, outstanding defense, young players. Took a little step back offensively, and you guys know the history here. And then 2013 sort of regrouped. 13, 14, 15, big years. I think 34 and 5 maybe in those 3 years. Dipped in 16 drastically, but you know, leading at half at every one of those football games. So don't really know how to handle that. Had some problems, you know, as we go. There's always going to be problems. Regrouped in 17, 18 last year was, you know, tight. But, you know, obviously doing some decent things. And once, you know, played better defense than probably offense, need more production, a lot of injuries. And here we come in 19, so we'll see what 19 brings for us. But I've always felt like we could win here. I've always felt like you're going to have great crowds, as evidenced by the last 2 games, and there's a tremendous amount of support here, and there's a very proud group of people here that represent Spartan Nation. So we're going to get ready to play. We're going to emphasize toughness and effort all the time, and knowing what to do, which we have on from day one, and we're going to try and do this old school, which we have from day one, and we've got players here who are tough and excited to come.
Forgive me if I asked you this last year, I may have, but did you ever meet Duffy?
No, I have met his grandson, and I have met his wife before she passed. Duffy Daugherty Awards. And I believe his grandson may be coming this week.
Mark, when you walked in the locker room and saw all that neon and talked to the team leaders, and you said you want to wear these uniforms, what would you have done if they'd said no or, not really?
Well, I asked them before they put them on. It's key. Because this thing's fit tight. But, you know, when we went through all this, you know, they had opportunities to look at them far and away before that day. So it's just a change. It's a change from the traditional color, and sometimes that's good. And I thought it was a good change. And like I said, it was important that we play well. I thought it was very important that we play well, because I know that anytime there's change, you know, there's going to be, you know, a group here and a group there, and there's going to be talk, and there's going to be people saying this or saying that. So it's important that we play well, and I think that's what made those uniforms really look good.
They're one and done, right?
I don't know. Might be wearing them this weekend. You never know.
Just, you talk about being in the moment, and obviously this moment is an important one for the program, for yourself individually, and a lot of other things, but would it be, I guess, not as received if you don't continue the success? If things kind of come apart or fall the other way, does it make it more special when you have a successful season and individual milestones?
Well, first of all, I've never really thought of things that way. I don't go through life like that. I go through life thinking we're going to win. And everything that we do is predicated on trying to do the best we can and planning on success. So I've never really looked at it in that respect, and I don't think it's going to go in that respect because we stay positive. But the most important thing is to be 3-0, and then 4-0, or 3-1, or whatever it is. The most important thing is what's coming up next. Long term, years from now, or when this is all done, I'm sure I'll look back and say, that was an interesting week. Got a lot of two-part questions. Okay, but for me right now, I'm going to live in the present, and and I'm gonna deal with what what we can have an effect on, and that's the next game, and I'm gonna stay positive and get our players ready to play, and enjoy the experience with our players, and, you know, I just enjoy being with them. We got a great group of young people, they have great chemistry, you guys have interviewed them, we have unique individuals, and they're fun to be around, but they're great people, and they get along so well together that it's a blessing and a pleasure to be around them and coach them.
Mark, with the success and consistency during your tenure, how have you seen the recruiting atmosphere kind of change here at Michigan State? Is it easier to get some of these guys to come to East Lansing?
No, it's always tough in recruiting. Recruiting is a very competitive situation. I think things have changed. Just the demographics have changed in terms of people staying closer to home probably for the most part than most, or you get them on campus. There's such an earlier time of recruiting has become accelerated, so people are looking at you as sophomores and juniors, and they can't even come on campus officially. They can come on unofficially, but guys from farther away don't have that opportunity to get here as much. And I think usually you got to get on campus 2 or 3 times to at least have an idea, a good understanding of what it is about that place. So a lot of times you're trying to do that during the season, which you got, and you're trying to recruit as well. So it's just a busy time. But you get 16, 17 committed guys right now or so. And, so it's just accelerating. But I've always been impressed with the guys that come, and we want good people that are good football players, and that's what we've tried to do. We continue to try to do that.
Thanks, guys.
That's all good?
Thank you.